Hey, welcome back to Project Yellow podcast, and I'm very excited to share this episode with you. Uh, Today, my guest is Phung. Phung is currently an enterprise business development representative at Adobe. We talk about many great things that I would love all of college students who want to become a sales representative someday to listen to this. Phung talk about how to get into sales and some important steps to take while you're in college. So please listen to this episode and share it to your friends who want to become sales professionals someday. And as always, thank you so much for listening to Project Yellow podcast. Let's begin. Thank you so much, Phung, for showing up right now. I'm so excited to talk to you today. I'm so happy. Let's start. First, can you tell us about yourself and your background in sales?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. It's awesome. I'm really glad you reached out and, very humbling. So my name is Pong. I work as I work in software sales or technology sales. It's mainly known as like tech sales. I work for a company called Adobe. So um, in school, I studied marketing, management, and international business. So that's very brief. Yep.
I'm curious. How did you come to get interested in sales?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, um, it kind of did in a way because it allowed me to get the right experience, um, not necessarily education, but the right experience, meet the right kind of people, build the right kind of network to get a job like this at a company like this. And now to share like how I got into tech sales or why I wanted to go into tech sales, I think it's fairly simple. So my freshman year in college, I wanted to study HR. I think a lot of people in the Chin community like that major as well. So I actually did my HR internship my freshman year, and I learned about sales. So I didn't know about business to business sales until then. So I learned about sales, and um, I just knew the reason why I got into sales was because you can make a lot of money in sales. And so that's why I got into sales. And I did a few internships. My last internship was my junior year at Eli Lilly. I was a pharmaceutical sales intern. I did really well there, and I thought I was going to sell pharmaceutical products until my senior year in college. That's when I learned about tech sales and that, for software companies, they sell like software to other enterprises. And so I researched the industry a lot. I looked at different industries like biotech, software, pharma, many different sales industries, and tech sales seems to be where you can um, do well and get paid the most. And so, I mean, that's why I really decided I wanted to go into tech sales.
Can you share your day-to-day life as a sales professionals, and also can you talk about your TikTok channel real quick?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, for those that don't know, I do have a TikTok account where I share like a day in the life and things like that, and I think that's what Daniel was referring to. Um, so like a typical day in the life in tech sales is it'll vary day to day, obviously, because you work in a customer facing role. But I'll just give you a rundown of my calendar. So I go to the office. So I work hybrid. Like most, if you're working tech sales, mostly you're going to be working hybrid. So I work 3 days at home and 2 days in the office. And my day's exactly the same whether I'm in the office or at home. So I typically start work around 8:30 a.m. and I work until about 4:35 p.m. So typically how my day goes would be I spend the first 30 minutes answering emails, and then the next 45 minutes to an hour I spend prospecting, and then the next hour I'll probably spend cold calling. Now you're selling software, you're selling technology, and I'll give a breakdown of the career track and what it actually looks like working in software sales down the road. But here I'll just give a brief answer of my role. So I do those things, and then the rest of the day is filled basically by with like internal meetings and strategic prospecting and things like that. So that's a typical day in software sales, and it's extremely flexible. I think a lot of people know how nice working for a technology company is, like free food, like all of those things. You get like a lot of day offs, like a lot of vacation days. So yeah, there's a lot of perks that people generally wouldn't know, but it's really good.
Yeah, what skills are important in sales and what can students do to prepare themselves right now?
Yeah, so I think that question has like an answer for like with twofolds. So one is what are the actual skills necessary and used working in the industry versus what can you do in college to like better prepare yourself to be in the position to land these roles in bigger companies that you want to go into. So I'll answer the the what are the skills you need first, and then what should you do in college second. So the actual skills that are used on a day-to-day basis that I use every day would be like um, these are all soft skills. None of these are hard skills. Everything you can learn. Um, one is like just your ability to listen. Listening skill is probably the most important aspect working in tech sales because you are working with like VPs, CMOs, you're working with C-level executives. So that's a big one. And the second is verbal and written communication skills. You have to be extremely sharp in those areas. And the third is essentially like your ability to stay organized. I know that's a skill that doesn't necessarily ever come into mind when talking about these things, but organization is massive working in any space, but especially in sales. When you work with hundreds of accounts, you have to note every little thing. So all of these things are of high importance. And then another thing is negotiation skills definitely come in handy when you work in sales. So that's definitely needed. And I would say the last thing is not necessarily a skill, but something you kind of develop over time is like your ability to handle rejection. There's way more no's than there are yeses, even when you are selling software for a company. So your ability to handle rejection is probably one of the most important ones up there. And now to answer your second question, what can students do while they're in college to prepare themselves to land these roles? Um, I think the best time in college you should start preparing for this is your freshman and sophomore year. Now, junior year, it's not too late, but it's a little late at that point. Now, as a freshman and sophomore in college, what you can do is my encouragement would be to join a sales club if your university offers it. If not, join any other club, maybe marketing club, to show that you are serious and that you take initiative. Second, if you are able to get leadership roles within those clubs, do so. Now, another thing is there's a high importance placed on LinkedIn that the university teachers sometimes speak about, sometimes they don't. But LinkedIn is extremely important because we use it not only within my job, like to do my job, but like you can use it to network and all of these things. Now, so those are some things that I would consider as a college student. And obviously, the most important one and the most obvious one is getting internships. Now, these internships are extremely competitive, and these are things I share on my TikTok account. Like my handle is selling software. You can look me up like my first and last name. But the way you go about finding these internships, because they are extremely competitive, you have to do it strategically. But those are certain things you should do as a college student to prepare yourself.
Hey guys, if you haven't followed Pung on LinkedIn and TikTok, please follow him. You won't regret it. I follow him. Okay, next question is what kind of challenge have you faced in this role?
Yeah, for sure. I think the good and bad thing is that there's abundance of challenges when you actually jump in the industry. Uh, the biggest one is just um there's an actual name for it. I think it's called I forgot what it's called. If I remember it, I'll come back to it. But it's like where you feel like you don't belong, like in the industry, like you're not good enough. You're going to feel that 100%. Imposter syndrome is what it's called. Like you feel like an imposter, you don't belong there. And another challenge you're going to face, this one has to do with the job itself, is like sometimes you're going to get mean emails from like executives at other corporations that you normally wouldn't get. And then there's going to be a lot of conflict internally, like just in a communication aspect. So be prepared for those. And you're working in sales, so you're going to be working against a quota, meaning you have to sell like certain amount of dollars in a year, and that gets broken down into quarters. So there's 4 quarters in a year, and so every 3 months you have to sell X dollar amount, and it can be extremely high. My Q4 quota, so this most recent quarter, my quota was 1.7 million. So you have to meet certain quotas of that extent. So that can become really overwhelming, and sometimes you feel like you're not going to hit quota, so you can face challenges like that. But it's mostly mental.
Yeah, can you tell me about various sales roles in tech company?
Hmm. Yeah, the various sales roles. So the most common one, there's a few. So within tech sales, at entry level, the roles are called SDR or BDR, and that basically stands for Sales Development Representative or a Business Development Representative. Now, what you do within these roles is you are the first point of contact for your company with your customers. So within tech sales, you like within like SDR, BDR role, you can either be working in small businesses, mid-sized businesses, or you can be working in enterprise like Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies. So what I do is I work with Adobe's largest enterprise clients in the East Coast. So you have that, and then that's entry level, and then after that, another entry level, so to speak, is called CSM, which stands for Customer Success Management. So um, that doesn't require a technical background either. So these are roles that you can get likely right out of college, but CSM roles, I think you need a bit of experience. So if you don't have all the experience, I would shoot for SDR, BDR roles. Now, keep in mind, these are extremely competitive roles. Because you apply to 10 different companies doesn't mean you're going to get even one single interview. So you have to be very strategic in your approach to all of these roles. And then, so after SDR, BDR is basically account executive. So within account executive, an account executive, what they do is like, as a BDR, I work on starting the meeting. So within like varying different sales processes, I'm in charge of the first 2 meetings, booking the meeting, and then working the meeting for the first 2 meetings. So what the account executive does is once the meeting actually qualifies as a sale, meaning they have the budget, you're speaking to the right stakeholder, and then they want the product, and then there's a solution fit. What the account executive does is they work on closing that deal. So within the account executive, you start at an SMB, which stands for small market, and then small businesses, and then you have mid market, and then you have enterprise account executives, and then you have strategic. So within the account executive role, there's layers to the actual job in your career span. So the typical like time range between how can you become an account executive, it can depend, but I think at the quickest is 5 years, depending on like if everything goes well, it's 5 years, but it could range from like 7 to 10 years.
Oh wow. It seems like sales career is pretty good. Aside from getting big pays, you have a chance to move up and have big impact in the organizations. Next question is, can you share some resources for college students who are interested in a sales career?
Yeah, for sure. So for number one is like someone who already knows about sales and just interested in like elevating their skills, want to know a little bit more. Several books I would suggest. Number one is called Spin Selling by Neil Rackham. It is probably the best sales book in history, like by data. And then number two is called The Challenger Sell. It is a very similar book to spin selling. Now, these are both methods of selling. So these aren't books like you read just for fun, but you actually read it so you can learn the skill set and implement it. They're amazing books. And then the other book I would suggest, it's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He was a FBI negotiator. And so this is a solely negotiating book, and it can come in, again, like a negotiation is a big skill set that's like you need to have in sales. So those are the three books I would suggest for someone who already understands what sales is. And for someone who doesn't know what sales is, I don't think there's necessarily a book, or at least to my knowledge, that would explain that. So my suggestion to you, if you want to learn more about sales, is basically jump on LinkedIn, find people that work in sales. It can be software, it can be pharma, it could be biotech, it could be med device. Find them and then ask them for coffee chats. That is the best way to learn about sales. Obviously, there's like other podcasts and things like that. Because I don't listen to too many podcasts, I don't think I could give you an honest opinion on that. But that would be my recommendation.
I'm curious, what kind of tools are you using right now? And also, can you talk about some organizations tools, communication tools, or any tools that you're using so that our listener college students can prepare themselves?
Yeah, for sure. So, as far as like the tools, like everyday use, so number one is Salesforce. Salesforce is known for its CRM, which is like customer relation management. So Salesforce is the biggest platform that we use every day. Number two is called,
Oh, quick questions.
yeah,
Can student create a free Salesforce account?
that's a great question. I don't think they can create Salesforce accounts, but what they can do is, if you are a university student, your school should have what's called like a university LinkedIn account. So with that, you can get on LinkedIn Learning and actually learn Salesforce. That's what I did when I was in school. I learned to use the CRM before even like graduating. So you can do that on LinkedIn Learning. And another tool that we use every day, so some of these tools aren't going to be tools they can practice right now, but they can find on LinkedIn Learning, YouTube, read up on it a little bit to put on their resume. Now, number two is Outreach. Outreach is a extremely popular tool that we use to do mass emails. So Outreach is a tool I would familiar myself with. And number three is Zoom Info. So Zoom Info is used to find contacts of any individual. So you find emails, phone numbers. Again, these aren't going to be tools that they can access right away, but these are tools that they will eventually use on the job. So these are all great to know tools. And obviously, Excel is extremely underrated. I use Excel every single day. If you have good Excel skill set, man, you're going to be good. And so you said after the tools was like, what can college students do right now if they want to get a job in tech sales? Here's my mhm. So here's my number one recommendation is find someone that works in tech sales. It could be me, it could be anybody. The best way to do that is get on LinkedIn and then like find any software company has people that are selling that software, because see, for a company, you either make a product or you sell a product. That's how they make money. So someone has to be selling these products. So find people that work in software sales. Their titles will be business development representative, sales development representative, or account executive. Find people that went to your university that work in the company where you want to work in. Connect with them on LinkedIn, ask for coffee chats. Now, here is the number one thing about getting a job that people don't know. What in your application process, the best way to secure an interview is by having an internal referral, meaning someone that works at the company refers you and puts your resume through an internal referral process. So, what a better way to do than get on a chat and ask if they have openings for an entry level sales role, and if so, if they can refer you to that role. That would be my number one recommendation. Now, another thing is a big tip is having your resume structured really well. Something that I talk about on my TikTok all the time is Harvard resume template. You search that up on Google, it's going to give you not only the right kind of template to use, but it's going to give you like action verbs, how to structure it, why to say certain things within your resume. So those are some of the biggest tips that I would give to a current college student. But the you can't replace internships, so that's something I would focus on.
Any closing thoughts, Phung?
Yeah, for sure. So again, thanks for having me. And here's one thing that I would suggest. I think, if you go to college, your end goal is to make a lot of money. If that's not your end goal, and then I don't know what you're doing in college. Maybe it's for the experience. Maybe it's because your parents just told you to go, but you're going to realize one way or another that you want to make good money. Maybe it's not a lot of money, but you want to make good money. And I think tech sales is absolutely the most lucrative industry, unless you want to do nursing like with passion. That's great. If you're not passionate about anything, I'm not passionate about anything. I just wanted to make a lot of money. That's why I got into sales. That's why I got into tech sales. You can make you can do extremely well in tech sales. Even within your first 2 3 years, you can make you can make six figures your first year, and I guarantee you within your first 3 years you can make six figures. And in 5 years you can be looking at 250 to $300,000 every single year. And people don't understand that because nobody talks about it, especially in our community. Nobody talks about it. Nobody knows. So that's why there's not more people in our community that work in tech sales, if any. So that would be my number one recommendation is if your goal is just to make a lot of money and make good money, look at tech sales. You work 35 to 40 hours a week. I've never worked more than 40 hours a week. And sometimes, like right now at entry level, I make more than some software engineers at big companies. And you can do that in tech sales. So that would be my number one recommendation is just do more research, find the right resources, and yeah, you can absolutely do it.
Thank you, Phung, for your time today, and thank you everyone for listening to this episode. I am Daniel Tang, the producer and the host. Amos Byung is the scriptwriter, and Elijah Lindgren is the video editor. I'll see you guys again on next Wednesday. And as always, thank you for listening to Project Yellow Podcast.